This study here started up quite funded by, I was contacted by Ulla, and she said she has some very interesting products. And I think we have to hear what this is all about. And Ulla presented the green kale powder, and we decided to apply some money for some research that could be interesting, and to investigate the health beneficial effect of this kale product. And therefore we started up to do that for, I think it's about 3-4 years ago we started up, and then we have finalized the study also now. So what I'm going to tell you about today is in fact some data from the human intervention study that we performed. And we did this on type 2 diabetes patients, as people who have diabetes diagnosed. The idea about using vegetables as a kind of treatment for especially type 2 diabetes came in fact from another study that we named MaxVeg project. You see the MaxVeg project here. And it was a study we did for some years ago. There is even a homepage you can go in. But there we, in that study, we gave the patients a basket of vegetables, about 7 kilos per week. And it was different kind of vegetables they were getting. And then they have to prepare and eat these vegetables. They have to eat 500 grams per day per person. And then they have to do this in 3 months. And all these patients also have type 2 diabetes. And from this study, we got some very interesting results. It was published for not so long time ago. And what especially was interesting that we could see that most of those traditional cultivars, as an old kind of varieties of vegetables, seems to be more efficient than modern one. And the reason for that is in the more traditional cultivars, they have a higher content of what we call secondary metabolites. It's compound that the plant produce themselves. So they are, we can say that they have effect, but it's not for them to grow and so on, but it's make the, what you can say, the characteristic of the plants. It's the color, it's the taste, it's the smell and so on. And this one seemed to have a beneficial effect on human. And we can say we're not really clarified totally which kind of compound is working, but we know classes of them who is working on human. So that was this study, and we got some fantastic result out of this study here. The idea about this, the aim of this study was in fact to develop ingredients based on kale, and then clinically test this one on benefit, especially on type 2 diabetes patients. And we have selected both, identified some special cultivars of green kale, some special, what we can say, also it was growing organic, and then it was also processed in a special way, so we can keep all the active ingredients in the kale product. And then to develop into a functional food in some way. How can we do that so it's easy for people to take it in, to eat it? That's very important also to be able to do that. The reason why we choose the kale to go on with, also when we look back to the MaxVeg project with the other vegetables, we find out that green kale was the most healthy vegetable at all. It has so many different kinds of ingredients, and especially these secondary metabolites, that is very important. And I will show you later also other things that you may know also the reason why it's so healthy as it is. And it seems to have very good effect, especially there is some anti-cancerogenic effect also, we know from that one, but also it can also have good for the digestion system, and even it can avoid also cardiovascular diseases also. So there are many beneficial effects with green kales. You can see here, especially we were interested in type 2 diabetes patients and how this could affect them, especially when they have a high intake of this green kale, and to investigate this in 3 months period. first of all, we know that some of the cases why green kale is so healthy is, of course, they have very high amount of dietary fibers in it, but also the bioactive compounds, the secondary metabolites, as I just mentioned for you before. And until now, and I'm sure there have become even more, but there have been found more than 14 glycosides or lates, and also there have been found more than 60 carotenoids of different kinds, and then a lot of different phenolic compounds have been identified at the moment here. So there is a lot of hundreds of different kinds of bioactive compounds that are included in those green kale products. If you look, especially when you look at the powder itself, you know, when you have removed the water by this processing, by this way of freeze drying the product and take away the water, then it fills less than 1/10 of what it did before. So, but when you look at the powder, you get very happy to see it, because look, first of all, there is a good saturated fat in it. You can find here that's very healthy. They have the polysaturated fats here, you say, and then we have, of course, also the fibers, where we have 41 gram per 100 gram, and that's fantastic, really. Not many products have this high amount of fibers. Protein, 25 gram per 100 grams, and then a lot of minerals and vitamins, especially one of those we really need to have, especially the K vitamin that we get too little of in Denmark, but of course C and also magnesium and calcium and so on, we see here is enriched in this product here. And especially if you go in and looked into, especially, sorry, I was taking this up here, but we can look in especially in the proteins here. If you go further to look into that part here, then you see here that it's very interesting, because we found that those especially essential amino acids, it means that it's amino acids that we need to get from our diet. We cannot produce it by ourselves, we need to have them by diet. And here you can see especially the three first, valine, isoleucine and leucine, is very, very active amino acids, which have shown to have beneficial effect of many kinds of diseases, especially also when we talk about type 2 diabetes, to improve insulin sensitivity and so on, many other purposes. And here we find quite high levels. So it's in fact at the level what is higher than we find, for example, in whey proteins that have been very, very popular to put in every kind of food items around the world from the milk production, you know. But here we find it also in the green kale, quite high amount. That's the patients that were in the 60s, they were overweight. And you can see BMI here is overweighting here in this one, and they have they have increased blood sugar levels, so they have type 2 diabetes. They were well regulated. You can see this on the hemoglobin C1, the blood sugars, we can see long-term blood sugar levels, but otherwise they were simply good regulated also with blood pressure. So it was you can say healthy type 2 diabetes patients in some way. And the study went out in 3 months. Or 12 weeks, and they started out by screening to make sure that they have type 2 diabetes. We took some blood samples, and they were put on blood pressure for 24 hours. We have this computer they were put on the arms, so we could follow this in 24 hours to see also if something changed after the 3 months of intervention. And also we make a DEXA scan, so we can see how if the fat content, if they lose weight, then we could see if this was happening when they were doing this intervention study here. And then we have a check midway after 6 weeks, and then we end with the same thing we did in the beginning here. So we can see what happened from start to end. So the first data you got from the study here, and you know the data is from the different from start to end, if you remember that. So here you have the hemoglobin A1C. It means how much the blood sugar have been in the 3 months period of time. And you can see here for the red one, this is the control, that they got a bar without green kale, and the green one is those who got a bar with green kale. And here you can see that this was increasing, so it means that the blood sugar level was increasing during this time here when they got a placebo treatment, while it was very nice decrease in blood sugar when they have got this with the kale. Simply because they're getting this with high fiber content and also the bioactive compounds that have a very good effect on insulin sensitivity. So the insulin works much better in our system compared to when they don't get the green kale. So very positive data. And here you can see we have also with fasting blood glucose, even if it's not significant, you can see here the tendency is quite clear. You see an increase in blood sugar, you see a decrease here in the one who got the green kale. But it's mainly because we need maybe to include more patients in a bigger upside if you should have those data in here, because they are very variated, in that one. Then we have ODTT, as we make oral glucose tolerance testing. The same tendency you can see also here is almost significant. You can see also here that we have this very nice decrease. So it means the blood sugar level, how fast it's disappearing from the bloodstream, is much faster when they got the green kale compared when they have the placebo from start to end. So it means they've been more insulin sensitive. So the insulin, when they got the green kale, is working much better. So they're much faster to take up the blood glucose from the bloodstream into the tissues, into the liver, into the muscles, and also into fat tissues. So they have been better regulating the diabetes. And then we also have the HOMA. This is a kind of method for detecting the insulin sensitivity, as to how good the insulin is working. And here you see very clearly also it should be as low as possible. So you see it's a very nice decrease here. So they get much more insulin sensitive, while the other one is almost nothing happened here. So very positive, and this is significant here. We'll be able to see this effect here. And then we look at the body weight, and you can see that was clearly the loose weight, the one who got the green kale, and that's mainly, because also the high fiber content and so on. So you feel very satiety when you eat it, because they have this high fiber content also. And here you see they lose weight, while the other one is very, very stable here. They don't really change that much. And I have to tell you, we went from summertime into winter time. And when it gets cold outside, we also change our diet a little bit. So we eat a little more fatty food maybe when it gets more cold. And that could be the reason why we see a little increase here. But this was significant. You can see quite nice. We measured 3 days in the beginning and 3 days in the end of the study, everything they were eating. And then we made a calculation on the computer with a special program, so we can able to count their calorie intake. And then there's something a little bit surprising. We have some studies about it before, from Ulla, from Johan, who have done this study. You know that study also where they were able to do in vitro. And we want to test this also if it's possible to see this in the human intervention study. Even it's could be very difficult because the lifetime of GLP-1 is not so fast. It's very, very short in the bloodstream here. But anyway, you can see quite a very substantial fall in the control group, while we see an increase here in the group of those who got the green kale. So there seemed to be some very interesting stimulation about the GLP-1. And as you may know from other studies from what's been on the market now from Novo Nordisk, our Danish company, Ozempic and Wegovy, that they are, this kind of hormone that you are injecting. But in fact, you can, even by having the intake of green kale, you in fact stimulating the release of GLP-1 into the bloodstream. So that's a more natural way, you can say, of getting a higher level of GLP-1 and thereby have this positive effect that we see with GLP-1, which is a very, very interesting hormone. To go back to the study, just to end our green kale project here, we also have the total, as we did the DEXA scan, where they have to go to this scanning. It takes about 20 minutes to do this DEXA scan with the people, and we did this from start to end. And here you can see the change also in the amount of fat. So you see the people who lose weight was mainly because they lose fat. So also this is a very, very interesting point that we have in our product that make you satiety, at the same time you lose weight, and it's the fat that you're losing, not the muscle mass. Yeah, then we have the calorie intake also, where we measure how much they're eating. And here you can see that we have this 3 days from the beginning and 3 days in the end. And when we measure the calorie intake, you can really see here that they have a much higher calorie intake, the one who have the placebo without kale, and those have diminished the calorie intake, the one who got the green kale. Mainly because you know the high fiber content, but maybe also the release of GLP-1, who have this satiety effect on the brain here. So that's what we have of data in these issues.